Why is saying goodbye so hard sometimes? Obviously, I'm not talking about a see you tomorrow goodbye. I'm talking about a I'll never see you again goodbye. The type that makes your heart feel like it's gonna tear in two. The type that, when you lay in bed that night, you can't think of anything else except that last meeting you had. Why is it so hard? When I was in middle school, I met my favorite teacher of all time. For the sake of anonymity, I'll call him Mr. Johnson. I had him as a substitute for a PE class all the way back in fourth grade. I think it was fourth grade, anyways, and it was one of the most fun PE classes I've ever been in. So obviously, I was pretty excited when I found out he was going to start teaching history for middle school. Mr. Johnson was one of those teachers who got it, who knew how much middle school sucked, but made it as fun as possible. Not only that, he actually made history interesting. When we would be taking notes, he would always make jokes and impersonations of the people and places and things we were talking about. It made it fun, relatable even. Mr. Johnson was also a sports guy. He had a baseball bat he would walk around with in the classroom. He he did have to do a little bit of explaining about how, it was kind of to help him out, and no, it was not to hit our heads in with. And he also, during the free time that we had, would have us play a game called Quiet Ball. Basically, you chose a position somewhere in the room, and you stood there for the rest of the game. You couldn't say any words or make any noises. Then Mr. Johnson would toss out 2 to 3 tennis balls to different people. The tennis balls would then be tossed person to person, and if you weren't paying attention and missed catching one, you were out. But if you didn't throw it all the way to where the person you were trying to throw it to could catch it, then you were out. Just, make things fair. Gradually, the amount of people would go down and down until there were 2 people left attempting to toss it, not throw. I mean, he was clear about that too. No, you're not going to chuck the tennis ball at the other person. Attempting to toss the ball to each other in ways that were just close enough to catch, but difficult enough that I might miss. It was actually a really repeatable, fun game to play, and now I just realized I spent an entire minute or two talking about it. Whatever, I'll keep it in, just because it shows how Mr. Johnson was actually such a good teacher. Not only that, but there was this running joke in the class about how Mr. Johnson had a time machine. It was just all, a joke, but we would get on huge side tangents just asking him about his time machine and where he went in time, and he would say something like, I don't have a time machine, in such a way that made it sound like, he had a time machine but just couldn't tell us. Gosh, it's no wonder why this guy was my favorite. And yes, I say was in the past tense. He no longer teaches at the school we're in. He moved at the end of 8th grade, but I still remember the day we said goodbye. Because Mr. Johnson's classroom was such an open, honest environment, and because I was in middle school and was a smart kid, I did get kind of cocky at times in class. And I knew this, and I felt really bad about it, especially when I heard he would be leaving at the end of the year. But back to that last day of school. The way our school does it, I'm not sure if other schools do it this way too, but the 2 or 3 days before school ends, we clean lockers, take home binders, stuff like that, and the very last day is only 2 to 3 hours long. It's just a time for students to bring home any last things they might have forgotten, or to say a final goodbye to friends or teachers. And that's what I was doing. When I got to Mr. Johnson's classroom, there was a line of people actually waiting to give him a final hug or handshake or goodbye. So I awkwardly stood in line, hands in pockets, staring at the ground. I tried to think about what I would say, what I would do when it came to be my turn, but before I could come up with something, I was right there. I awkwardly looked up at him, my favorite teacher of all time, and I was at a complete loss for words. But Mr. Johnson knew that. He said, "Aw, come here," and I wrapped my arms around him and gave him the longest embrace I can remember. My arms felt weak and insignificant compared to the strong but sure feel of his around me. The tears came soon after. I'm seriously crying right now when I wrote this script, and yeah, just thinking back to it. That's how much it means to me. But nothing gold can stay. And so I said my last goodbye. I've only seen him once since, when he visited our school again a year or two later. But things were different then. I had grown. I was no longer the smart alecky kid I once was. But we still had a chance to talk. But it wasn't the same. Why is saying goodbye so hard sometimes? To be honest, I don't know. But it's something very human, and something a lot of people understand. There's a reason See You Again is the fourth most watched video on YouTube. Well, then again, Baby Shark is number one, so maybe I need to rethink that. If I had to make one guess about why saying goodbye is so hard, it's a mixture of a few things. Something inside of us, almost a natural instinct, understands saying goodbye. That's why we get that heartbreaking feeling, and in my case, cry like a baby. As humans, we live in love, and living without the people you've learned to love is hard. Maybe that's why saying goodbye can be painful. But time, if it doesn't heal, dulls all wounds. And the longer we go after saying goodbye, the greater chance we have at forgetting or locking those fallen memories away, only to rediscover them one day and reminisce on the times before we said farewell.